Feel free to join in on the debate, or anybody else who's in chat if there is anybody. Um,
There is one other person.
One other person. Cool. All right. So if anybody else wants to join in on the chat, feel free to. What is our next one? This is now the semifinals.
Yes, so we have. Do you want to do 1 seed or 2 seed?
Um, w- Remind me of the games.
So our 1 seed matchup is number 1 seed Viticulture taking on the 4 seed Lords of Waterdeep. It actually, or it's like the higher seed. It's Lords of Waterdeep versus Viticulture, and
Okay.
it's Architects of the West Kingdom taking on Caverna.
Okay. So yeah, I'll take on Lords of Waterdeep. Let's do that one right now.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to start off or?
I'll start off with Viticulture.
Okay. Go for it.
Viticulture, to me, is just the quintessential worker placement. There's, as mentioned earlier, you can take slots from people, and the thing I like about Viticulture too is in the multiplayer game, it has different areas that are played in the game. So if I'm playing a 1 to 2 player game, we can only go into the first section
Right.
of a location. If we're playing 3 to 4, we have 2 spots. One of them gives you a bonus. Sometimes in the 1 to 2 player game, it will give you a bonus. In a 5 to 6 player game, you actually have 3 spots, so you're not completely locking people out, but that also gives me the ability, if I want to, I can go to the same spot twice.
Yep.
And so I like that aspect that it escalates as it gives you more options as you get with more players. So I can blow my load and just finish off in spring and have to wait while you guys fight it out in the summer. But hey, I got all this stuff for my vineyards or money or tours and stuff like that.
Right.
So that's one of the big things about viticulture I like about it. Uh, it it's not it doesn't overstay its welcome. It can be on a longer side because there's an endpoint. Someone has to reach that thing. But the big part of it, the reason why I like it, is because it also incorporates engine building in it. You got to start building that engine and things. But once you start getting your grapes, once you start getting them in the crush pad, once you open up your warehouses and start building those bigger bottles and stuff like that, it starts ramping up. So you're maybe only moving 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 points at a time. But once you get into the middle and the later half of the game, 5, 6, 7, 8 points at a time, getting
Right.
you closer to that end game, which ramps up other people where they're just like, oh God, what am I going to do?
Right.
I need to start getting my stuff filled in. And I like that aspect of it because it gives you that engine build. Plus, it's a worker placement. So once your engine starts clicking and firing and boom, 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 boom. And another thing I like that I mentioned about viticulture is that you can actually sell your victory points when certain cards come up or certain things come up to start getting you stuff.
Yeah.
So I can sell a victory point to get some grapes. If I can't find the right kind of grapes on there, I can just put some grapes in my crush pad by selling victory points. So I can go into the negatives in the beginning of the game to start getting my engine built. And I think that's a cool concept.
I think that's cool too. Yeah. I mean, it mitigates the random in it. Where in Lords of Waterdeep, I mean, the biggest advantage Lords of Waterdeep has is it's absolutely worker placement. You take a spot, nobody else can for the round. That's guaranteed for you. And it's incredibly easy to get into and play. And it has the cool D&D theme where, if people are looking for more of an action theme, they're going to pick that over viticulture any day because viticulture is winemaking, not exactly action packed. But those aside, if we boil them down to their basic core mechanisms, they both do worker placement, and they both do it true and true. You take the spot, it's stopped. Now, there's a little bit more to viticulture than Lords of Waterdeep, but then also the second mechanism they have is order fulfillment, which I'm getting certain resources to fulfill the quest in Lords of Waterdeep. I'm getting certain resources to make wine in viticulture. The I mean, I think we both agree which one is going up because of the fact that since viticulture is just a better game. It is.
Yeah, it really is.
100%.
And again, a part of it is too is because it's a second edition, so things got streamlined, things got
Yep.
better. Because of the essential edition, you have the variable starts. So
Yeah.
we all start with the same thing, but we also can, like, because of our mama gives us this sort of thing, because of our papa, we can either get more money
Yep.
or we can get more worker or building to start with and stuff like that, making your start a little bit different than, say, Dom's start or your start and stuff like, or my start. So that's another thing that I like about it too, is with the essential edition, it helps mitigate that. And well, another thing too with Viticulture, yeah, it's the better game. And I have your big argument, and your friend, what'd you say,
E3.
Ithri?
Yeah.
Um, he made that point earlier that worker placement before someone else takes that slot. What I like about Viticulture, and a lot of worker placements are actually going away from blocking people out of spots, more so is giving people bonuses for going to that spot first. And Viticulture is one of the first games I've ever played that did that. Oh,
Right.
you have two spots here at, say, planting the grapes, but one of those spots you can get something. You can either plant an extra grape, or some other locations gives you a gold piece, or my favorite thing is when you're getting a new worker for the next season, you could pay, if you go to that spot, you get to pay one less. So it's rewarding you to take the spot first rather than
Yep.
taking it away from somebody else. You're just getting rewarded for it. I think that is where we should go with worker placements. Instead of taking spots away, reward, making it more enticing for you to take that spot first.
Well, but then the enticement is also boiled down to, it's like, do you get the spot? No. Like, I want that spot, and part of it is, do I want to undercut you knowing that I probably won't need it till later to prevent you
And
from getting it? And but I mean, that's true. It's a give and take, and there's ways to
yeah,
mitigate it. I think if we boil it down between the two games, order fulfillment and worker placement, Viticulture has everything Lords of Waterdeep has, and miles more. It has the engine building,
and I
has
just wanted to make
grande
one more
workers.
argument
Yeah,
on that, just so for order fulfillment. Yes, that's the big part of viticulture because you're building those wines, but you can still be in the game without ever having to do order fulfillment just by doing the visitor cards. The
true.
visitor cards could keep you in the game without ever getting wine built, and I've seen people actually win it just through visitor cards.
Yep, yep. All right, I agree. So we agree. Viticulture is moving on up. Sorry, Lords of Waterdeep fans out there.
Yeah, and it's because it. And again, if Lords of Waterdeep ever comes out with a second edition and streamlines some of the rules and fixes a few chinky things here and there, I think it'll keep its place as one of the best worker placements ever. It's just
Sure.
going to get better.
Yeah, it can only improve from there.
Anthony as an Ameritrasher, theme is super important to me. I'd rather kill dragons than watch paint dry, but boring Euro themes do allow players to appreciate the mechanics more since there's nothing else to look at. I do like the mama and papa thing.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
completely agree. Yeah,
I
he is
agree
a
with the Ameritrash, and also, yeah, no contest between those two viticulture.
yeah, it's not even close because true, if we think of the theme, sure the theme is better in Lords of Waterdeep, but does it come through in gameplay? No.
No, not really.
Yeah,
But
they're
my
getting
thing with that
cubes
argument
and
too, before we
filling
get on to our
resources.
next round,
Yeah.
is honestly, if viticulture was a little bit simpler, and if I can get it against board gamers who are not gateway game per se, but that next step, because I believe viticulture is like that next step, maybe the next
Right.
step. I think I can get more people to play viticulture because of its theme than I can to get more people to play Lords of Waterdeep because it's Dungeons and Dragons. I know
Yeah.
more people who are wine drinkers and probably would enjoy a wine game while drinking wine than I do people who are into generic fantasy.
I thought you were about to say people who actually go out and slay dragons. It's like, well, of course you know more wine drinkers.
But I'm talking
Uh,
about, I know one, maybe two people who play Dungeons and Dragons. I know more than a handful of people that drink wine.
sure.
I'm more of a beer drinker myself, but I love a wine game.
Okay.
Oh, you're super approachable theme. Yeah, and that's the big thing. That's why Wingspan has
Yep.
done so well. It's because it's something different, but there's a lot of people who are like, ooh, birds.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the big thing about it, is you need that approachable theme too.
I remember when one of the first arguments against Wingspan was like, "Wow, what a boring theme!" Like everybody's like, "People who don't like birds aren't going to play that." Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will, and
There's a
clearly
reason
they
why
did.
it's still, you can't find it in shops.
Right,
It's
exactly.
that popular.
Accessibility is important. Everyone knows bird. Yeah. Oh, couldn't agree more. That's brilliant. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk. Uh, I know which one you're gonna pick.
Well, because you ain't gonna pick it, so
No, I'm not gonna pick architects. I am definitely gonna go Caverna. Did you kick us off last time?
I think I kicked this off with Vidi.
All right, Caverna. Oh my God, perfect worker placement. Start with three, you get more, or start with two. I forget how many workers you two or three, but you start with two or three, you get more. More spaces arise on the board. More options to build your engine of building the underground. You could build the buildings on top of them. You can explore the area. You can upgrade your components. You can go on quests for more victory points. Everything in that good or in that game is the definition of engine building with perfect worker placement into it. And to make sure that it makes sense is that there are certain spots that are clearly not as good as others. Like for example, there's a spot that gives 3 wood every turn versus this one that only gives one and maybe an ore. If you need wood, I can take that from you, but that doesn't mean you're out of the game. You have other options that still give you. I feel every space in that game is just as good as any other space given circumstances, which is really cool. And so the only I don't feel like there's any really deterrent to that. I mean, the more workers you get, the more spots you have available to you, but also the more people you have to feed, but also the more points you get, but also the buildings you need. It's such a cool plan that you really do. I think it's as far as dry Euros go, it's the most thematic as far as dry Euros. In a
That's an
way.
oxymoron if I ever heard one.
Yeah, right? Exactly. It doesn't make sense, but I feel like if I'm gonna focus on questing, like I'm gonna get all those weapons, I'm gonna upgrade, I'm gonna get components that will let me upgrade that I'm applying to my dwarves. Where if I'm gonna go on exploring, I can really delve into exploring that area and digging up things and getting the tiles and getting my mines ready. Or if I want to build my workforce and build the buildings, oh my god. Any of the options that you can choose, you can delve into it and you probably still won't even get like the full experience of that. I think it's a brilliant experience.
Okay, so I have to argue Architects of West Kingdom against that, but again, in I3 made the same point earlier, is and I made the same point as well, is if you're far behind a Caverna, there's no catching up. If you make one or two critical mistakes just by on accident or because you got blocked off for certain everything, so certain points, you're done. You're just gonna have to wait till everybody else finishes off, and you're not gonna catch up. And that's as much as I love Caverna, that's one of my big flaws with it. And the same thing with Agricola too. It's just again, you're just sitting there waiting and watching other people actually have fun. You're just like, there's nothing I can do. There's
Eh,
nothing I can do to win this.
in a way, but that's true for Architects of the West Kingdom as well, because there was that just because of the timing between you, me, and Dom when we were playing, I got hosed because of the way all like when like it made sense to steal my workers, and I don't deter you guys from that. It made perfect sense because at that point you should have stolen my workers because I had the most on a single spot. Same thing. It's like you should have taken that, but at the same time, there was no way I could have ever caught up.
I3. King making can be fun if you're spiteful enough. And trust me, I do that a lot, especially in Caverna when we played it. I was king making because I made a critical mistake and I was so far behind on that game.
I don't disagree with that. Certain games can do it. It was incredibly frustrating on my part because once you guys started stealing my workers, there really wasn't any way I could catch up. It was impossible. I had that snowball effect was still in Architects.
But it's not as bad. Like I said, yeah, your workers are not working
Spiteful.
for you. But I mean, there was a point where when I played it, it was just a two-player game against Dom, where
Hmm.
he ran out of workers. Even though I was throwing him in prison and he would capture him back, at one point he was just pulling one off and putting one on at a time because all his workers were out there, but they were spread out. He still won the game because it just didn't make sense for me to go after his people. Um, and there's ways to mitigate it too because you can build and rush the end game if you have a high enough score and you got the resources. You can build the cathedral. You're going to get a lot of points plus some bonuses there too. So the prison aspect of it, Does it hurt? Yeah, in a 3-player game, it might be a little different. Because I played a 3-player game, I've played a 2-player game, I've played a 4-player game. Um, the king making in that one, or just when you fall behind, it's not as bad as it is in Caverna, because on in the second round, I could be so far behind. There's no way I can catch up to you guys. With Architects of the West Kingdom, there's ways you can actually mitigate catching up to people.
No, I don't think so. I think it boils down to if two people try, if one person tries to exceed more than anybody else, it's all a matter of who steals their workers first, that they become the conflict, and the third person, the odd person out, is going to win. I think that's why Dom won, is because you and me, like,
Well, Dom was taking your people as well, just because it made the most sense, because that's where we're going to get money.
right.
But the thing
And that
is
locked me out
because
of a possible chance. Where I think in Caverna, you do still have a chance if you're able to do certain things.
not
It's not as
necessarily.
likely.
Honestly, with Caverna, and it's a lot of UA Rosenberg games, is that if you're not playing well from the very beginning,
Yeah.
especially when it's, say, a new player against people who have played several worker. Let's say this is a guy who's good in board gaming in general, but this is the first time he's playing Caverna, and he's playing against people who are really good at Caverna or have played Caverna a couple times to know the nuances of it.
Sure.
It within 2 turns, if he makes a critical mistake, he's out. And even with the 5 of us when we played it, there was 5 of us all knew this, all first time plays, because you and me and you and a few other people played Agricola. But I mean, this is the first time I played Agricola, but it's the first time I played Caverna. This was the first time Bryce has played either one of them,
Yeah.
and I believe the same for Lorenzo.
Yeah.
And the problem was, even though I had played Agricola, I made a couple mistakes in the beginning of the game because I just wasn't exactly sure how to place these things. And I thought maybe building up in my house in the mines, getting like stones and stuff like that would be more helpful. But the big problem for me in Caverna, it's not defeating people, which most people have. It's that if you don't do these certain things or have these certain animals, you lose points. And that's what ended up killing me in that game, because I wasn't building all these. You have to be good in one thing, but you have to still dabble on all these other little things, or else you're going to get smacked with negative points. And that was my big problem with it, was those negative points. Because the only time you get negative points in Architects of the West Kingdom really is when you get suspicion.
Yeah. No, not necessarily. Here's why I disagree with that. But real quick, I want to bring up Ithri's point. He said, "Is this a worker placement list?" Yes, it is. And the only reason Keyflower isn't on the list is because neither of us have played it. What we did is we went to Board Game Geek's top ranking of all time worker placements, and we took the top 8 that him and I have both played. That felt like worker placement. So like Orleans is a bag builder. We don't count that. It says only game that I've ever seen where every action feels super important is Keyflower. Cool. Only game I've ever felt legitimate fear playing. That's awesome. I need to try it because that sounds amazing. Though you can fall behind, it's a bit long.
And that's the part that scares me, because as much as I like Caverna, falling behind, like I was saying,
Yeah.
can really hurt you. And I fell behind so bad because Lyncho was concentrating on the questing. You were concentrating on like your outside, building up your farm and getting your buildings out there this way you can hold more animals. And Don was doing the same
Right.
thing. And I was building the mine. I was getting myself some donkeys. I was building stuff in the mine. And I was like, okay, this is good. But I didn't realize I need to build out over there too, because I needed to start getting everything this way. I didn't get negative points. And I think I ended up with negative 15 points, which put me even further back. I think I can actually check the score, how far back I was.
Well, I feel like in Caverna though, yes, you can block spots and you can have that snowball effect where you're running behind, but that's not a detriment to the game. That's a detriment to what happened to the player. And whereas in Architects of the West Kingdom, you can, like, you and me could king make somebody. Like, 2 players working together could actually prevent somebody from winning, because you're either stealing the workers or you're taking the spots, where it's way more impactful that if let's say, for example, Daniel, if me and Dom said, okay, we're playing Architects of the West Kingdom, Daniel's not winning, we could very easily make that happen. where we can force you to have to.
I mean, you could do that in Caverna too by taking spots that I need to go to.
No, but
That's
it's not
that's a
new.
quick.
There's lots of ways to mitigate it. You can't king make
Not
in
necessarily.
Caverna
Let's put
like
it this way:
architects.
when we played Caverna, you won, and you beat me, who was in last, by 26 points. That's a big turn, especially in Caverna.
What was my high score?
Your high score was 67.
67, and that was a 26 point difference, so about a third, right? What
Yeah.
was the score
Second
for
place was
architects?
Lorenzo was at 58, which was an 11-point difference.
Right. What was architects at? What was the score difference there? Because now this will bring up an interesting talking point. Because I know I lost it by far.
Yeah, but see, architects, to clarify, architects' point system is a lot easier to get points than it is in Caverna.
Okay, so we'll see if I lost by a third.
All right,
We'll talk
let me,
percentage wise.
let me look at plays in the last. No, I'm trying to find the statistics. It has just my win average, so I actually have to look for the game itself.
Okay. What I'm saying though, in with this argument is that I don't feel that I lost necessarily in Architects of the West Kingdom because you and Dom outplayed me. I felt that you and Dom were given that.
And to make my point about that argument about Caverna, you actually came in second place, and you only lost by 6 points.
For Architects?
Yep.
Okay.
44 to 38. And my final score was 31.
Well, wait, who was the lowest score though?
I was.
Okay.
Because I was actually, I remember that game, I was actually trying something new to it.
Okay. But no, I still stand true that I think Caverna is a better worker placement because there's plenty of spots that you can mitigate, that you can still go on your path, you can still do what you want, and you're not king making the other players.
All right, let's take a vote.
All right. Caverna.
Caverna.
All right.
Don't get me wrong. I love Architects of the West Kingdom. I understand your problem with it.
Yeah.
I think Caverna is just a good worker placement
It is.
game in its sense. It's just my big problem with it is the fact that as I read the scores out to you, if you make a critical mistake, there's no catching up.
Yeah.
There isn't. You had a 26 point from first to last place. There was a 26-point difference. Second place was only 11. Everybody else was in the 40s.
Yep. Cool. All right. I don't disagree with that. And now comes to the finale. The final.